Welcome to Channel 57 WDRK and the 6 o'clock news, the most historic name in news, with host Kelly Storm and co-host Julie Bologna.
Good evening and welcome to WDRK and Evening News. I'm Kelly Storm and this is my co-host Julie Bologna.
Good evening, and today is April 22nd, 1836, and Andrew Jackson has just been found unconscious. It is believed that he has been poisoned and left to die.
Local police have brought in 4 suspects: Nicholas Biddle, the president of the Second Bank of the United States; John C. Calhoun, a member of the South Carolina legislature; Henry Clay, the man who should have been president; and John Ross, the leader of the Cherokee tribe.
Now, the nation is in massive chaos, and police are unsure what to do. But luckily, 2 well-informed citizens have shown up to the police station and are helping the police with this conundrum. And now over to 2 of our citizens who have decided to remain anonymous because of the nature of this subject.
John Ross, the leader of the Cherokee tribe, should not be convicted. He westernized the Cherokee tribe, hoping that they would be able to keep their land. They had a bicameral legislature, a written language, and they even owned slaves. Alas, this didn't work. Jackson issued the Indian Resettlement Act of 1830. John Ross appealed to the Supreme Court in 1832. The case of Worcester versus Georgia ruled that the states did not have jurisdiction over the Indian tribes. Jackson refused to enforce this ruling and has begun to move Indians off their land. The Cherokee leader took peaceful actions like appealing to the press and using petitions, and the Cherokee are still in possession of their land. Because of this, and the fact that John Ross has a mild personality that does not fit that of a murderer, and also that John Ross's goal was to have whites and Indians live peacefully together, and murdering Jackson would not have accomplished this goal. We are asking that the Chief of Police, that John Ross, be released because of lack of evidence against him.
Today I'm here to convince the police that Nicholas Biddle should be freed. Although he was a political adversary of Jackson, Nicholas Biddle, president of the Second Bank of the United States, should be cleared from the list of suspects. Biddle's main focus was to recharter the Bank of the United States. However, when Andrew Jackson denied Biddle's request, some animosity did surface between the 2 men. Ever since then, though, Jackson sought to destroy the Bank of the United States by starting to use pet banks in 1836. He had the power of withdrawing national funds into state banks, and these state banks became pet banks, which led to the Wildcat Bank, which was when they issued too much paper currency, which led to inflation and the value of the dollar dropping. Altogether, these essentially killed the Bank of the United States. However, when compared to the allegations of the other suspects, Biddle did not have enough evidence or personal motivation to have poisoned Andrew Jackson. Looking back on it actually, the actions of both these men, it seems that Andrew Jackson had more motivation to kill Biddle rather than Biddle killing Jackson. Presently, Biddle is still in charge of the bank, and so killing Andrew Jackson would not have helped the situation or made it any better, thus proving that Biddle is innocent and should be freed.
Here with more information on the subject is Ezekiel Duguid.
Ezekiel, you're a known researcher of Henry Clay. Why do you think he should be freed of all accusations?
Well, honestly, the evidence against him is not enough to convict a man of murder. Although he is a top political rival of Jackson and has opposed many of his policies, there is bad blood between the two, going back to 1818, when Jackson invaded then Spanish-controlled Florida. Clay criticized Jackson for ignoring the Secretary of War's orders, and Jackson has hated Clay ever since. Clay also was accused by Jackson of agreeing to a corrupt bargain with John Quincy Adams to become the Secretary of State under Adams' presidency. He was also against Jackson's expansion of the executive branch. Jackson vetoed the charter of the Second Bank of the United States, despite the fact that Congress passed the bill easily, and the Supreme Court declared the bank constitutional. Although Clay disagreed with Jackson's policies, his motives were mostly political. Jackson personally hated Clay much more than Clay disliked Jackson. And finally, Clay still has plans to run for president in this upcoming election, something a murder charge would not help. I don't think the police should convict Henry Clay.
Thank you.
Thank you. With 3 suspects ruled out, here's Jeremiah Smith to prove that John C. Calhoun should be convicted of this crime.
Now tell me, Jeremiah, why do you think that Calhoun should be convicted?
After researching this topic for quite a while, I have come to the conclusion that John C. Calhoun has had the most reasons to attempt to murder Andrew Jackson. The first clash between Calhoun and Jackson came in 1818, when Andrew Jackson invaded Florida. This went against the wishes of John C. Calhoun, who was at the time the Secretary of War. He went behind Andrew Jackson's back and criticized his actions. Jackson's quick temper erupted when John Calhoun denounced what Jackson did in Florida. The second clash between Jackson and Calhoun came when Andrew Jackson won the presidency and Calhoun was named as vice president. The crisis was called the Nullification Crisis of 1832, and it began with the Tariff of Abominations in 1828. Now, the Tariff of Abominations in 1828 was initially placed to protect economy in America. However, it only benefited New England, and much to the chagrin of the South and West of the United States, it only hurt their economy. South Carolina, John C. Calhoun's home state, believed that they should not have to follow the law. In writing anonymously, Calhoun penned the South Carolina Exposition in protest. This document stated that if South Carolina was forced to follow this bill, or this tariff, they would secede from the Union. Jackson found out about this document, and he said at a dinner party to Calhoun, "Our federal union, it must be preserved." Calhoun rebutted with, "The Union, next to our liberty, most dear."
Our federal union, it must be preserved.
Our union, next to liberty, the most dear. However, it was clear that Jackson and Calhoun had very different political standpoints on this issue. In 1832, Jackson penned the Force Bill. It was created by Jackson and was passed by Congress as well. This bill allowed Jackson to send troops into South Carolina if they refused to follow the tariff and were planning on secession. However, Henry Clay in the same year proposed the Compromise Tariff of 1832, and he saved the country from a very close war. A third scandal between Calhoun and Jackson occurred with the Petticoat Affair. The Petticoat Affair occurred when John Calhoun's wife, Florida Calhoun, who was in charge of planning parties at the White House, refused to allow Peggy Eaton, the new wife of the Secretary of War, to the dinner parties. Peggy Eaton was not allowed because she was rumored to be an adulteress. This bugged Andrew Jackson because Andrew Jackson believed his wife was killed during malicious propaganda against her in one of his political elections. In December 28, 1832, John C. Calhoun resigned from the vice presidency, being the first vice president to do so in American history. For these reasons, I believe that John Calhoun had the most personal vendettas against Andrew Jackson. And for these reasons, I am asking the Chief of Police to hold John C. Calhoun under arrest for the attempted murder of Andrew Jackson.
Thank you for being here, Jeremiah Smith. Tune in tomorrow night at 6 for details of the arrest.
And when we return, more breaking news. The Bank of Durkin has been robbed. Find out how to protect your Durkin dollar. In other news, Tyra Banks is suing Krispy Kreme Donut Corporation in Supreme Court case Banks versus Cream. Details to follow.
Have a nice night.